Welcome to Empowered by AI, the podcast for women entrepreneurs ready to harness AI to take their businesses to the next level. I'm your host, Michelle Muncie Silva, founder of Innovative AI Studios. You may have left corporate life to start this entrepreneurial journey, but you don't have to go it alone. Here, you'll find a supportive community of like-minded women and an invaluable thought partner each week, as my guests and I share actionable insights you can use right away. So let's dive in together. Hello.
What up, girl?
Hey, how are you? We are going to
Very happy to
feel
be here.
all the power today because I am excited that this is the woman that introduced me to all things business, online business. Kim Doyal is a mentor. And she is a gift. And I so am excited to have this conversation today with you.
This is so fun to be. I do love being on this side, and bear with me, girl, because you do know how I talk. So if I get a little circular or side notey, I'll do my best to rein myself back in and get on top.
You know what? Most of the pearls of wisdom come when we just let them happen organically. So side note away, I'm good.
Okay, awesome.
I do want to let people get to know you though. So I want to start off with a little bit about your journey starting in the online space all the way up to not only embracing AI, but showing other people how to embrace AI. Can you start off with that?
Yeah, and so way back when in 2008, which does feel like a million miles away at this point, years, miles, 6 to 1. So yeah, it was 2008 and I was widowed in 2003 and I was just determined to find something I could do from home. Okay. So I had come across internet marketing at a conference I attended in San Francisco. It was a wealth expo. And we went to this little offshoot and it was like a side session and it was on internet marketing. And I was like, what? People are making $10,000 a month selling ebooks. It pulled me in right away. And I have always been, I think the term is like an audiophile. I love audio. Like back in my day, for anybody in the United States and remembers Crown Books. It's like I grew up with Crown Books, but so I had access to books on tape and I started very 22. My friends were always like, what are you listening to? But I had then listened to a CD set, Mark Victor Hansen, one of the co-authors of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And it was it was Build Your Mega Speaking Empire. So clearly I've always had this, let me speak. But there was an internet marketer on there too. So it's like all these little signs kept popping up. Long story longer. So I jump in. I had a little bit of a cushion. 2008, I'm like, that's it. I'm going all in. And within the first, I would say 7, 8 months is when I fell in love with WordPress. I became the WordPress chick, not knowing how to code my way out of a paper bag. Like it was just, I had no skills. I couldn't even attach something to email, Michelle. I don't know if you knew, I was not tech savvy. My husband was. I was determined. And I always use this phrase that was, if I can figure out how to put together IKEA furniture, I can figure out WordPress. And so I just jumped in and never with the intention to build websites or do service work or any of that. I did. This path takes you on this journey and one thing puts itself in front of the other. And I just was having fun connecting with people all over the world, blah, blah, blah. I created an outsourcing company at one point in there for other WordPress website designers. And 2013 is when I launched the WordPress Chick podcast. I was really tired of just being behind the scenes. And that is the first like pivotal moment for me, I would say, because it blew up my relationships, my audience, the connections. And obviously I'm a little bit animated, right? And so I can have fun. But what I would do is a solo show and an interview and a solo show and an interview. And it really became true that the people that were willing to listen to me talk for an hour, I love long form content. I love getting sucked into good content. And we're like my ideal tribe. And from that, it was like I started coaching. And in 2018, I pivoted out of WordPress, let the outsourcing company go. And I've done courses and all of that along the way. And then I just went all in with my personal brand, Kim Doyal. And fortunately, I had the foresight to have all my socials just be Kim Doyal, and it's Doyal for anybody listening. But when I started, so I didn't have a lot of that to change. And that's when I, really fell in love with content marketing. That was my sweet spot with WordPress, even because I started doing a lot of content, which is how I grew things, was the marketing side and helping the everyday user figure out stuff with WordPress. And but launched a content planner 2018, we closed that in 2022. We did about $500,000 in sales, which is not bad on content planner. E-commerce is a beast that, don't know that I ever want to touch that again. We'll see. Unless I did print on demand. But yeah, fast forward to today, and I know we're going to get into some pivots and stuff, but yeah, I'm doing a little bit of a pivot. I still create content under Kim Doyal. I've got my newsletter, The Spark. I don't know if I'll bring the Kim Doyal show back. I might, with a completely different angle, and we can talk about that. But I think that brings us up to speed. I've done the whole gamut of everything: affiliate marketing, courses, coaching, workshops, whatever. I love writing and recording. If that's all I had to do, unless somebody would pay me to read, then I'd really.
I love it. And you talk, I think one of your key mantras is just show up. And I want to talk to you about that, because I think sometimes, and I don't want to make a stereotype for an entire gender, but I know in my own experience, I have hit walls with people where they're like, wait, why are you showing up here? What degree do you have? What educational background are you coming with? Why are you in this room at this moment? You know what I mean? And so your mantra of just show up has, I think, some wide-ranging consequences if people can adopt it. But I don't want to assume that I understand what it means to you. What is it meaning to you?
It actually means a lot of things. And the fun thing, girl, is at the time it was like, just show up, be you, right? It was simple in the fact that you don't have to know the 6-year game plan. I pick 6. Who does 6 years? But you don't need to know that game plan. You just need to show up today and do the work, right? And so I would say that was my mantra. And just show up. God, I did that 2014, 2015. I forgot when I came up with that, right? And but it was, and I mean, I always like to do hashtags too, but it was just do the thing that's right in front of you. Just show up. And it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. So there was all of that. Today, 54-year-old Kim, and it's weird because I was 38, right, when I started. 54-year-old Kim is like, oh, I am going to show up. So let me just show you what that means. And there is an empowerment. So in terms of that, and keep in mind, like, I've been in this space now for almost 17 years, which is nutty to me. And is it gender specific? I think it probably weighs heavier with women. And according to my therapist, women, we operate relationally. Men are more transactional. And I don't mean that in any, just straightforward. And so there is this, what are people going to think? That imposter syndrome is relevant for both genders. But girl, I held myself back for a long time as a WordPress chick because I wasn't a coder. I wasn't a programmer. Claiming that name, I literally was. I switched it to the WP chick after WordPress said you can't use WordPress in the URL. They gave me a few months to flip the site and stuff, but ignorance was bliss until it wasn't, until I started. I think there were people that were actual developers, and I got snide comments and trolls. And one person must have emailed me 4 or 5 times, always with a fake email address and whatever. Do you not know the meaning of copyright? And it was like, other people were using WordPress in the URL. Like, it was just, so there's all that bullshit. And when you're new to something, I don't care how old you are, we're humans. We have that. And especially as women, we are socialized and conditioned to make things easier for other people. And so the just show up, the beauty is, I think we get to define what that looks like. If somebody is new to this, just showing up, they may not want to engage or record or be on camera. Now I'm like, screw it, right? And like I was telling you before, just pissed off last night and recorded a video, posted it on TikTok. And Kim in her 30s didn't care. And I'm not like a high maintenance girl with makeup and stuff. However, that was before all the sun damage I did in the 80s and 90s started catching up to me in my skin. And it's like you wake up one day and I'm like, why is my skin crepey? Anyways, but I don't care anymore. So for me, just show up is being in integrity with myself. And so that means this week I needed a day off, and I didn't care that my newsletter was late. It's going out a day late, which was a little heartbreaking because 207 issues and not missing a beat. That's 207 weeks in a row. Yeah. But I'm okay with it. I'm showing up for Kim now at this stage. And that feels very strange to talk about myself in the third person. Specifically for women, show up to the table, claim it. We have a right to sit at the table and have our voices be heard. And the magic that I think that happens for me as I age is I have no problem. Oh, I didn't know that. Thanks. And I won't go into what that applies to, but let's just assume it's business online and AI and stuff. And I've talked, and I'm sure you've heard me say it before, I have like core content values. As long as I am educating, entertaining, or touching someone's heart, then my content's done its job. It's not up for me to decide. I use a lot of self-deprecating humor, and it's probably not, I think I'm funny, right? Like I'm my own best audience. But for the most part, if I'm doing that and it doesn't resonate with somebody, I'm 6 of 1. The other thing with just show up, and I don't know if you've noticed this, Michelle, the other thing is it's the older you get, the more empathy you have. And I don't necessarily personalize everything the way I used to, regardless of where you're at in a journey or your age. And for any woman listening to this, you have every right to speak your mind, to put your words out there, to put your face, your voice, whatever works for you. And so I think the just show up has to be defined personally, but it means doing the work. At the end of the day, you got to show up and write the article, comment on a post, connect with somebody, if outreach, whatever it is. But so just show up as do the work in the way that works for you. Because I've always been a big Gary Vee fan, but I'm like, I don't want to post 5 to 10 pieces of content a day. And if that means on multiple platforms, and if that means my business grows slower, okay.
Yeah.
I want the white space. Okay.
Yeah.
So just show up for you.
Exactly. I think so many women, and I put myself in the same age bracket as you. I'm about to turn 54. There's this idea of there's a pivot that is happening for many. There really is. And it's connected to our own timeline for the first time. It's like there's a shift that has begun to happen where, and you could call it AI if you wanted to, you could call it the opening up of the online space, the democratizing of it, that there are opportunities for us to leave the more traditional path behind. And can you talk a little bit about how you've managed pivots that you've made as you've transitioned to things that honor more of who you are, where you're at, especially right now? I know you're making a huge pivot right now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because I remember having somebody ask me one time, they're like, oh, you're public about your failures and stuff. I'm like, oh, business fail. Oh, I tried it. It didn't work. Doesn't mean I'm not that brave in my personal life, or have I been all the time, right? We all bring our own shame and stories and experiences to everything. It's how I'm wired. Just let me do it, right? Even when I was in management and I always wanted, okay, what's the next step? What's the next step? What's the next job? What's the next promotion? I like change. I like change. And the thought of doing something like, I was talking to my therapist and I was saying, yeah, my life's been a little bit like this, right? And I don't know anyone our age that would say this is exactly, my life has played out just like I had planned. I don't know anyone at all who actually can say that. However, I'll take this. And if you're listening and can't see, I'm doing my hand, fingers up and down, like a wave, right? Versus a static line. That is like soul crushing to me. And so the pivot, I was very lucky. Even my parents, unconditional love, super supportive. My mom, God bless her, passed 5 years ago and was my rock. And even from her generation, but I saw her, she was a strong woman, and my dad respected that. And even though my dad and I may have differing views, he respects me. I know that without a shadow of a doubt. And there is this, the pivots and the change. Michelle, I think I'm a little bit, I won't go super esoteric here, but I've always been very curious, right? And I wish I loved learning this much when I was in school as a kid, to the extent that I love learning now. But it's like an insatiable curiosity. And if something's not working, why keep doing it? And I have joked that I feel like I burned my business down to the ground over the last year. I didn't, but I didn't have it in me. I didn't want to only talk about content and AI or email, or like I knew there was this nudge within me. And so I've learned to trust the voice. And here's something crazy. So I've talked to you, we talked offline a while ago, and talking about I'm going back to get a master's in next year. And it's funny because, so it's a master's in financial planning and financial psychology, and which ties into the pivot. But here's the crazy thing. So I jokingly call myself the Cal State transfer student. I got in and out of junior college right away, 2 years. And then the remaining 2 years of college took me another 18 years or whatever. But I ended up with a BS in psychology. And at the time, I had just been starting my business. And I remember my mom saying, do you wish you'd gotten like a marketing degree? I'm like, yeah, totally. Not so fast, because that BS in psychology feeds my curiosity. It feeds my understanding, because I'm fascinated by neuroscience and being able to shift and change things in our life based on the science of the brain. I'm not a sciencey person, but it was the missing piece for me. And so now all of a sudden I'm going into this field, and the direction that I'm pivoting, it's I laid that groundwork. What was that? 15 years ago? Unknowingly. I unknow. So when I can look back and see evidence of where I trusted a decision and it didn't have to make sense, and it shows itself at this age, I trust myself. And so this pivot is because I need to do this. And I've not ever read The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Tolstoy, but I remember a line from Wayne Dyer sharing the end of the book. Ivan Ilyich is on his deathbed, and I guess he was an accountant or something his whole life, and he was unhappy and crabby, right? And his wife comes in and he looks up at her and he said, "What if my life's been wrong? I don't want to have that question on my deathbed." So here we go.
Yeah. So let's talk about how you are pivoting, and specifically, like, what are you doing with Women, Wisdom, and Wealth?
Okay, so this whole tie-in, and this started because like and maybe it's because the income I've always wanted has eluded me at different stages. But I've always had this interest in earning a living that gives me the quality of life I want. And it's fun too, because at this stage, it's quality, not quantity of anything. I want the freedom to do what I want to do, which is why I started a business. I needed the freedom to take my kids to and from school. I was a single parent. But Women, Wisdom, and Wealth, I originally thought I was going to do as just a special series on my podcast, because I really want to understand the psychology and the beliefs. Because one, there's so much hush, shame, secret stuff about money that people don't talk about it. We all have our shit, right? We've all been it. And it's because I've had my own stuff happen in my life that I carried great shame around. And so that piece of it, I was like, oh, this will be great. And then I started thinking, I want to talk to other women who work with women about money and stuff. And then, God bless her, Julie Louis-Dreyfus launches Wiser Than Me, the podcast, or when I discovered it. And I was like, this is gold, right? Like those episodes, to get to hear her talk to these iconic women who are older than her, so wiser than me, right? This life experience. And I'm like, I want to dig deeper. You get to a point when you've practiced anything for a certain period of time, you either bounce or you go deeper. And even with marketing and stuff, like I think about things, and I love my tools and all that, but I could care less. I want to go deeper. So can I write better copy? Can I write better content? Can I learn the stuff that I'm doing? How do I take it deeper? How do I take it deeper? And this desire at this stage in my life, I was telling a friend of my sister's, my sister just turned 50 a year ago, and she's got a friend who's a year younger. And I'm like, I love this age in my life. And she was like, really? And I think she was thinking physically and what happens with a woman. I said, yeah, I like who I am. And I care a lot less about a lot of other things. So Women, Wisdom, and Wealth was born out of a desire to amplify women. And I was always afraid to do that big of a pivot just with my business, because I've always had a 50-50 gender split of my audience of men and women who, when it comes to marketing and all the content stuff, so I've had a lot of men. I have to listen to this voice now. So Women, Wisdom, and Wealth, I thought, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I'm going to do a newsletter and I'm going to do a podcast. And originally it was going to be focused on women, because I will always dig deeper with the psychology. What were your beliefs about money? What got in the way of earning? Or what stories do you have? Or were there pivotal moments? Those types of conversations. But I want to talk to all women, and pretty much Gen X and older. Doesn't mean I won't talk to younger women, but our views and our perspectives are different at this stage, right? Like me today, with everything I've been through, has nothing but empathy and compassion for the self that I shamed and I judged. And I think that I can bring that to the table. And I think I am so committed to amplifying women's voices also. And I think that, to quote Susan B. Anthony, or paraphrase her, I should say, because I don't know it verbatim, but is a woman is not truly free until she carries her own purse. Women need their own agency and their own money. So we have choice. And that's obviously not, it's never been more important than it is in the climate, especially in the United States today. And I need to do this. I need to do this. And here's the fun thing, Michelle. So I'm starting with a newsletter and a podcast. The podcast I haven't launched, but I've been recording. And I've got visions for what I think it could be, but I'm going to let it evolve. I'm not like the newsletter, you can pay or not. The weekly newsletter is free. But the truth is, I'm committed to this message, and I'm committed that the right offer, whatever, because it has to be a business, right? I'm doing it, but I need to earn a living. So that
100%.
if I was independently wealthy, I would still do it, but I'm not. So I need to earn a living. But the offer will present itself when it's right. And in the meantime, it's become a bit of a mission.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what I've noticed is that when women pivot, sometimes there is this overwhelmingness to it where, oh my God, I've got to do all the things. I've got to do the marketing. I've got to do the online presence. I've got to do the consideration for the content. I've got to do the SEO. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And it's very trendy now to talk about AI in that space. But I can honestly say with you, you have been here since the beginning, looking at how a tool such as that can give you the space you need to think, to process, to be. Can you talk a little bit about how you let AI serve you as you tackle these tasks?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if this is going to be helpful. When you're talking about all the things that have to be done, having been in this space for a long time, I'm like, I'll get to it. It's like when somebody's new and they're like, the webinar crashed. I'm like, it's okay. They'll come back or they won't. Like, you just get there. So with AI, how it serves me in so many different ways, but it was like what I realized, because I don't know, I've always been an early adopter with technology since I've been in this space because of my curiosity. So you see how everything comes full circle. But with AI, like I had jumped in with Jarvis initially, and I was like, oh my God, because at the time, like I have been writing online for a long time when Jarvis came out, which was 2021, end of 21, I think. And
you introduced it to me.
okay. And then, but it would probably be 2016 to 2018 is when I started saying, Kim, you better really start trying to understand copywriting, which is all psychology also. So being able to use a tool to pull out what I was working on was magical. Okay. So using Jarvis, but then when ChatGPT came out, I don't know what it was. And maybe it was because Jarvis it gave you such specific type of tasks, right? And the templates and stuff to put, which I've not logged in forever, but I don't have an account anymore. So somehow the blank slate with ChatGPT gave me this permission to have some fun. And as soon as I started talking to it like it was a pal, then it was like, oh my Lord. And that's where then I did a conversations with ChatGPT, and because it's mind-boggling when you first can witness. So it's not just about input to output, but when you can witness, I think I'm talking to a person here, right? Like when you start experiencing that, and then you start having more fun. And so it's all of those things. And girl, I use it for anything, whether it's content or brainstorming or the recent snafu I had with moving to and from Costa Rica, but that's neither here nor there. But the dog and I kicked out twice. I needed to write a letter, meaning turned around twice. I had to write a letter to the vet demanding my expenses be reimbursed from an incorrect health certificate. So it's amazing for that type of stuff when you need to pull things out. And so it's just, I really think of AI, it is just a tool today anyways. It is just a tool. But if people start thinking, it's like, let's talk play for a minute, right? Little kid, crayons, Play-Doh. It's anybody, if you close your eyes and you think about opening a brand new can of Play-Doh, anybody, you can, it takes you there. You can smell it, right? Or that feeling of a brand new box of crayons and what am I going to create? That's what AI should be for you. It should be what you need it to be. And so you have to play with it. I had an incident where engaging on something social, and I promise I won't go political, but I wanted a very direct response. And I said, write this as though you are a feminist attorney representing a woman, da, 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 da. And then it came back and I said, be more direct. I need this harsher without petty name calling. And so that, look, you think about the extremes, right? When I came up with the Spark, the newsletter, right? It had originally been F the Hustle. I asked my audience, do you like this? They're like, we like it, we get it, but you're so much more positive. And I was like, oh my God, I have to change the name. That was never my intention. So I go into ChatGPT and just keep going. And the engagement and the interaction, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. And so, I don't even remember what your original question was, Michelle, but
No,
how
you're
am I
fine.
using it?
Your answer, you're
I use
going.
it however I need to use it. Honestly, however I
Yeah.
need to use it, right? For shits and giggles, for research, for brainstorming. And then I know we're going to talk about tools and stuff, but it's just when I get stuck, that tends to be my default. Or in the case of saying you're a feminist attorney, was I knew that I didn't want my own keyboard warrior to come out. And so I'm like, polish this up, Kim. And it doesn't matter if it fell on deaf ears or not. I needed to just show up for myself and be in integrity with how I responded.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that to me has been the echoing response from women across the board as I have these conversations. It's that thinking partner, it's a sounding board, it's a first draft, I have something in my head and right now it looks like a knotted mess. I need you to take this for me. And I think that is so powerful.
Thank you. And can I just piggyback one more thing this just came to me as another thing I always joke around and say is when it comes to marketing and it comes to copywriting, there's all these data, there's data about what works, what doesn't work, right? And how many women feel that certain language doesn't resonate with us, right? And so would we have different data on advertising and marketing copy if women ran Medicine Avenue in the 50s? Would we have different data? Absolutely. I'm not saying that the other stuff doesn't work, but there comes a point, and I think I have to do this experiment now. I think I have to go in to ChatGPT and say, you're a copywriter from the 50s, but instead of the perspective of the man, how would you sell a bottle of 7-Up as opposed to a print ad with a baby drinking 7-Up? I shit you not, that's an actual ad. Yeah. But so if you flip it, and that would be an interesting experiment simply because there is no data of female advertisers in the 50s because they weren't allowed to do it. And so there is a way to play with it and massage it, but this curiosity, and when we get to tools, but like Perplexity, when I wrote a very intense article that was more of a personal article earlier this year, and I had a question because I was very curious as to, I read the Daily Stoic, I love Ryan Holiday, and I was like, were there female Stoics? There were 4 back in the early Greek days of Stoicism. And then I got a list of 8 current today Stoics, like Ariane Huffington. But Perplexity, which I'm sorry if I'm going sideways from your questions.
No, you're good. You're good.
To be able to click down deeper and go through it, because that's what I love about Perplexity. It's citations and data, and it'll help you explore. And so you may not naturally think that with Claude or ChatGPT or something, but Perplexity then, because what was interesting too, and right, so AI is trained on all these language models and all this content across the web, blah, blah, blah. All 4 of the ancient female Stoics were introduced as wife of, daughter of, wife of. Ariana Huffington was not listed as the daughter of her parents. And it's fascinating. And so there's one of the things that I think is probably an overlooked element is the learning and what we can gain. We've talked, and I know we'll talk about SEO, but it's like, have you ever if I want to get a clear, like I'm using the word trifecta. I know what it means, but I'm like, what is the definition of trifecta? So I went in and just a quick, not into ChatGPT, I just did Google, right? Because generative search is now at the top of Google. Yeah. And so it was just like, we can shape our own learning. I swear to God, I joke that, Kim, did you pay attention to grammar in school? Because Grammarly corrects me on the same damn things every week. But having used Grammarly now for a few years and I pay for it, but and I don't know that I'll keep paying for it now that Apple has it built into the OS. But that with Grammarly, I know the mistake I made before I even hover over to see, because it's a form of AI that I have now taught myself better structure and certain elements of how I write. I write in my own voice, right? So I think that you have to mold it to be what you want it to be. I love learning through it. Or dumb example, I love all these examples. Though I was talking with my aunt once and she was talking about getting blood tests back from the doctor. And I'm like, oh, let's go into ChatGPT and ask it to explain the blood results like a 12-year-old. Boom, basic language. So and all of this is empowering, right? Because when we know more, when we know better, we do better. When we know more, we can shift what this looks like. And the other beautiful piece of this, because do you ever feel like you're on an island when it's okay, I'm just going to write or do this, right? Especially working
100%.
alone or whatever.
Yeah.
And so not only is it a partner, but there is this element of you're not doing it alone. And the other thing that's neat about it is I like going in, and it's taught me to deploy a little more patience, because when you've got these instant answers and you have the patience to sit with it, and you're close, but it's not quite there. And so the more you do it, but yet that doesn't mean you won't be able to take something you used previously. I don't even know what your original question was again.
You're totally fine. You're fine. No, I would think, as you're saying this, I'm thinking of all these other women I've talked to where it's liberating to have that other voice, to have that other response, and it levels the playing field. I'm going to leave the security of a corporate environment. I'm going to leave the security of an institution, whatever that institution that they worked for previously was, and I'm pivoting to an entrepreneurial role where I'm it. So you want to talk about an island? Me being it is the island. I can talk to my significant other the live long day. That person ain't responsible for what I'm responsible for. It's me. And I'm not getting a paycheck unless something moves and something happens.
Right.
So to have a partner in that conversation that is right there, whether you're paying $20 a month or whether you're on the free version, that person is tireless. That entity, I should say, is tireless. It is there.
I've decided it's a she.
You've decided.
I call her Chatty.
Yeah, you go. There you go. But it's just this partner and this other voice that can bring something to the table that I didn't know. And it will teach me without judgment. It might not teach me without bias, but it will teach me without judgment.
Completely. And so it'll teach you. And the crazy thing is it can teach and direct, right? Because when you're talking about all these moving parts, right? So as we age, right? I don't know about you, girl. I want ease in my life, which is a huge piece of, I love Costa Rica, but it's not easy to live there. There's challenges that don't exist here. And so everything to me comes back to ease. So is there a way that if you can use ChatGPT to shorten that learning curve, to shorten the process? And when you think about publishing and creating and all of these things, it's like, when I was telling you about this like marketing trifecta, I'm like, I'm going to focus on 3 things. All I want to do is write and record. It's going to be Substack, YouTube, and email, right? I've got audiences everywhere else, but I can push that blindly, but my energy can only go here. So now what do? We go into ChatGPT, ideation for content, all that kind of stuff, but also help me make a plan. And I did this. I'm a fan of doing a letter from your future self as a personal exercise. And so I had written this letter and I went to ChatGPT and I was like, create a plan. Let's create a plan on how to accomplish this and put it in the form of a table. It's as I'm sitting here having this conversation with you, it's like all these ideas are coming up. Like I was like, what would Emily Dickinson say about women's rights today? And it's because we have all of her writing, so we can pull her prose. And so is there a way that I can find a softer way to say something that will resonate with somebody a reader, whatever it is. So it's really limitless. You just have to start playing and then you push it, right? Oh, wonder if I could do this. I wonder if I could do this.
Yeah. Are there particular tools that you find yourself going to again and again besides ChatGPT? I know you brought up Perplexity. but is there
Mhm.
a reason why you would differentiate? Is there something that's giving you that you feel is helping you for your business? What are those?
Yeah, 100%. So I really think of ChatGPT for ideation and brainstorming and planning. I haven't used Claude in a little bit. I know the latest version, though, a lot of people are saying that Claude is turning out better content. I like to write. So I don't want ChatGPT to write for me necessarily. And even with like sales pages, I'll go in and I use a formula from an old copywriter that I like that format. But here, girl, and I love doing this. So I just created this, it's a PDF, it's the visual guide to Substack. And it was all about setting up, right? Because for such a big platform, I'm tech savvy and I was like, this is heinous. So I did this visual guide. It's over 100 pages. I think I got PTSD from screenshots, but I've got this PDF. And then it was like, I'm in this for the long haul. That's the other thing, right? Like you just learn. I'm like, I don't care about launching. I'm going to put this out. I created it because I wish to God somebody had it done when I was using it because I had so many questions like, what does this and where does this show up? Anyways, so I upload the PDF to ChatGPT and I'm like, write an article for me, please. I'm like, it's simple, straightforward article announcing this. And I had a few questions, a few elements to the sales because it was an article, right? It wasn't really a sales page, but it was like, focus on this and this. And then I took the article and I'm like, write the copy for the Gumroad page because it's the first time I've put something for sale in Gumroad in a long time. But it was my content. Like it pulled it all from the book. It pulled it from my language, my tone of voice, my words and stuff. What was your original question? Because I keep doing this to you.
The tools that you use.
Tools, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So to differentiate, so I like ChatGPT for the ideation, the brainstorming and stuff like that. I'm definitely going to play a little bit more with Claude for more writing content. But again, I like to write. Perplexity is magic. Okay. So as I started pursuing women, wisdom, and wealth, I was curious. I said, I wanted to know specifically because Perplexity, and I don't know what their slogan is or whatever, but they pull in citations and articles and you get 3 free searches a day or something. But I'm paying for Perplexity because as I was looking at doing women, wisdom, and wealth, I'm like, I know who I want to talk to. And this was before I decided any woman who is willing to share her story has something worth sharing. I was specifically looking for women in the finance space because as I see it with Money for Women, that we've got the manifestation people over here, and then we've got the finance people over here. And I'm like, where's the intersection of the neuroscience and energy and psychological beliefs and all this kind of stuff, me in Perplexity. So I asked it to pull back people. So it's like it immediately delivered results. And then some I had known, some I hadn't, so it's a complete rabbit hole. You have to be prepared, but it's much more of a research tool. So Perplexity is way more for research. And to me, ChatGPT is for brainstorming and ideation. Claude, as I'm understanding, would be better for writing. I don't know if you've ever played with Notebook LM, Google's. So getting into that. And the fun thing is, as I'm looking back to as I'm going back to school to get a master's in January, I'm like, this is going to be fun. And here's the fun thing, because I found another one, paper guide. I don't remember what it's called, but it's specifically for research type papers. And it's not to have it write for me, but I want it to help me. Like, I don't have any financial planning classes in my pocket, right? Like I don't have any of that. These are like basic, and it's this merge between the two of psychology and finance, but it's going to help me learn. And I think it's going to expedite how I study because I have also, in all of my trolling for tools, there are AI tools out there now to help you create note cards and study cards and all this kind of stuff. And I'm super excited about that. But I do think research is key, right? I want the depth. I want the understanding. And I'm so close, girl, to testing. There's another tool that I've never tried. It's pricey, but it's called Movable Type and movabletype.ai, I think. And I know the guy who created it, but it'll write a book for you. And I know all these tools can do the same thing. But I also feel like, but I want to write the book. There's part of me that says that. But what I would love to do, I am going to use Perplexity and ChatGPT combined to help me grasp neuroscience and the brain and creating neural pathways and how that relates to just because I listen to these doctors, and even though they use everyday language, but it's like I'll listen to doctors and I read it and it's all lighter stuff, right? Like I'm not reading medical journals. Okay. These are podcasts and stuff, but I know how I learn best. And so if I'm the one doing the reading, the writing, all of that, it sinks into my brain a little bit. I love Gamma. I've showed you that Gamma.app for
Yes.
presentations. For the Women, Wisdom, and Wealth podcast, I put together a presentation in there and I use AI to generate the images. And the cool thing with Gamma is that when you want to do an image, it lets you pick the image generator. You're like, use Dolly, use Midjourney, and I forget what the other one is. It's built in there, and then I love, you can rewrite that, redo that kind of stuff. So I love Gamma for presentations, but PDFs, it's a pretty unique tool. It's like a website builder too. But anyways, what else do I use? And then AI within Canva, of course. It's like, my goal is not necessarily, I was playing with ideogram. There's so many tools, but for the most part, I like to create, but I want to create better and create in a shorter amount of time, if that works.
And one of the things that I love about you is that what you create is always authentically you. So can you talk for a minute about how you balance that? Because I know a lot of people feel that by using AI, they're giving up a little bit of that authenticity. How do you create that balance? How do you bring that authentic self to the table still?
Before I forget, girl, because you've got the question there, there's one more tool I have to share. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's called napkin.ai. And I actually did a video that I want to post to Substack with a little article, and it transcribed it. So Napkin AI, you go in, and so I should have pulled it up, but one of the things I did was I said, can you create, what did I say? Create an outliner, a document on the intersection of finance, neuroscience, and spirituality as it relates to women. Okay. So I was like,
hey,
well,
damn.
Here's curiosities. Let's just open Pandora's box.
I love it.
Girl, it's so great. So first of all, it spits it out. Do I have it open? I don't know. We'll have to share it after. But so it spits it out, and it looks like an 8.5 by 11 piece of white binder paper, which is fun. Sort of. Here's the cool thing. And it did it beautifully. And it gave me these great responses and whatnot. And it's a heading and a bullet and that kind of stuff. So on the left, in the left margin, so during each sort of little section of it, if you hover over it, there's this little lightning bolt that appears. Well, you click on the lightning bolt and it takes that text and generates an image, a diagram. And then there are choices for the diagram. So you want a Venn diagram, you want a bar graph, you want this, you want that. And then there's, depending on which one you choose, it then takes, which is so funny. I was just thinking, I'm writing this marketing trifecta. I'm like, go put it in a napkin, numpty. But you can choose. I want a professional looking image. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Professional looking image, or I want more of a sketch or a line drawing or whatever. And the cool thing is, so I did that, which is pretty sciencey based, right? And then I tested another one. Maybe it was about content or something. And when I tested that, I was like, oh, the initial diagram output, they weren't the same. So you're not like, we have these 8 choices and we're going to spit out a version of each. I was like, I didn't see that line drawing in the neuroscience article. And so Napkin AI. So play with that. It's amazing. And I've only done it free. Okay. So authenticity. The biggest thing is I always, when I need something to sound like me, I upload an article. I just put something in that I've already written, and I'm like, this is, and this is who the audience is. And we know you can put in all that customization within ChatGPT, but I give it feedback too, where I'll literally highlight something and I go back and I just iterate. If you don't like iteration, you're never going to succeed with this stuff. And so I'll say, that sounds, and I pull a sentence out. I'm like, that sounds really cheesy. I would never say that, because then it tries to get really witty and quippy. I'm like, you don't write for SNL, so slow your roll, friend. And it's, you gotta just simmer down now. Tip to SNL. For those of us who remember Sherry O'Terry on there, it's the authenticity piece. Even if you take something and it spits it out and you're like, thanks for the starting point. Now I know what I need to go do. Or as I was talking about this little trifecta of YouTube, and I'm like, okay, like I've got all these fun ideas that I'm going to create playlists for and stuff. And let me forget, I've got a really fun experiment I need to try. But so with YouTube, I could easily say, give me the outline, because I'm not one, I've used Riverside as a teleprompter, and I've only used that when I am doing a solo podcast, because as you can see, like the room I'm in where I'm recording, the lighting and stuff. And so I'm like, I need a black screen behind the video piece, as opposed to if I'm recording on video, as opposed to a white screen, which makes my face glow. But with YouTube and going to do that, I would go into ChatGPT and just bullet this for me, because I never read anything I record. I enjoy it more. I have more fun. I feel like the gems come from the off the cuff, like running with it. But I do know myself well enough, as you can see, that if I don't have a guide, which is why I always wrote out my show notes for my podcast, even though it was just me, I'm like, it's way too easy for my side tangents to not get pulled back. So I had to have this guide. I never read them verbatim. So the authenticity piece, so you have to really, that's the word I was looking for. I was going to say self-regulate. That's not it, but you have to monitor and really hold it to heart, like what works. Because the truth is, even when I did that, when I uploaded the visual guide to Substack and I'm like, write me an article, I was like, I also said, I put in a separate piece of writing, because obviously I've written within the book, but it's so many screenshots that there wasn't, to me, the type of context I'd want from having written 1,000-word article or whatever. But I was like, nah, it'll do. Because not everything has to be a work of art, right? The job was to announce the book. I sold some, it's great. I'm in this for the long haul, but now I can go in and take the book and say, now give me some social content for this. So the authenticity piece, test, and don't take it so seriously, but test it. Be like, all right, let's see what this does. Or I can tell if a headline, and maybe it's not, but the second I see a headline that has statement, sentence, I'm like, that's ChatGPT. I don't want to do that. And so I will play around with a headline, or I will go into CoSchedule, their headline analyzer. I'm not paying for it, but they've got an AI tool now built into that. And I'm like, oh, can I add, they've got power words or negative, positive statements, that type of stuff. And so by integrating the elements of these tools, you're getting better at what you're doing anyway. And so you have to trust your gut, but you also have to test. So I wish that I could give you do this and this, but you have to try it. And I just know what I would say and what I would not say. I'm like, that's a word I'd never use, or that one's kind of fun. Let's just run with that one. So it's a really trust your heart. And at the end of the day, you have to just show up and hit publish. That's another piece. Do the work and hit publish and see, did it resonate? Great. If it didn't, and you'll know in your body. Here's another thing, Michelle, is my therapist will make me do muscle testing all the time, because your body will not lie to you. And so if you can sit with something and say, do I feel good about this? Does this feel like something I'm like, yeah, I don't ever, and maybe I'm taking it too seriously, but if I feel like I'm putting something out that feels inauthentic, one, I know I'm bringing the energy to whatever I'm doing when I hit publish. Okay. So we can leave quantum physics out of it, because I couldn't explain it out to save my life, but everything is energy. And so I don't want that energy attached to something that I'm doing in the hopes of resonating with somebody to solve a problem, to make them laugh, whatever it is. And so you will know. So just sit with it. And it's okay to come back and be like, take a paragraph. I'm going to use this, but I'm not going to use this, and tell ChatGPT, here's what I would have said instead. Can you rewrite that paragraph, or Claude, or whatever you're using? So you'll find your voice, but until you get comfortable tearing it to shreds, because here's the other thing, ChatGPT is not judging you, but it doesn't care if you judge it.
Yeah, 100%. And I loved what you said about, if you're not into iteration, this is not for you. That is so true. If you are not willing to go back in and tweak and adjust and refine, it's really not your tool, maybe, for that purpose. Yeah, no, completely agree with that. So looking ahead, what's next for you? What's next for Kim Doyal? Any projects you want to talk about?
You know, it's funny. Like, I've always had this like secret back project that I'm working on behind the scenes, and I'm not right now, to be honest with you, other than stepping in. That's not totally true, but stepping in fully to Substack and YouTube. And I am I have heard the call, so to speak, and I'm going to jump full into YouTube with TikTok and shorts and whatnot. And the mix for YouTube, and I'm going to just, I hope you don't mind me share this really quickly with your audience, because if anybody 40, 50, 60 plus, whatever, YouTube is blowing up for this demographic. It is wild. I did a newsletter recently with this untapped and exploding market. And the cool thing is it's just people talking like kind of life advice stuff. And they're like talking head cameras. It's not fancy or whatever. And so anybody who's even remotely thinking this, or you do like video, or you're interested in doing it, great testing platform. Because again, if somebody's willing to listen and watch you, then gold. Plus, I do believe YouTube is still great as a search engine. So focusing on that, I got the book done. And so now with the visual guide to Substack, it's a matter of creating an evergreen campaign and content that is always driving people back. So as an example, with YouTube, what I'm going to do is, and I could go through each step, but I remember enough of my own frustrations when I was creating the book. Nothing like learning something inside out if you want to create documentation for it. But I'm going to do some short videos on Substack, on YouTube about Substack, one question answered, and then drive people to the book. Okay. But I'm thinking of the other two things that I would like to, this is my sweet spot. I don't know if you ever knew this. I was an art major for a while. And yeah, I do watercolors and all that kind of stuff. I love, and I'm a total visual learner. So I'm like, I see something here with these visual guides. So I might do a visual guide to Gumroad, and I'm working with a friend to do a visual guide to Notion, because I know Notion is incredibly powerful. My brain, it's not the way my brain works by default. I don't think and work in databases. There's nothing there, but I want to use it because I'm so tired of playing around with different tools and stuff for project management. And so I might be doing that. But the big thing, girl, the big thing is women, wisdom, and wealth. And I don't know what this looks like. My goal is to get, the podcast will launch. I might do it before Christmas. I haven't decided, but it's like the list of women that I want to talk to is growing. And through doing this, like, I don't have to get a master's to create a program for women. I don't. But in my own integrity, and for what it's worth, you can spend the same amount of money on a coach, right, as I'm doing on a master's program. So a win for me. And I was telling you, I'm playing with the idea of a PhD after, because the truth is behavioral finance is actually related primarily to investment behavior. And so I feel like this is a very big emerging field, truthfully. And if I could do a PhD in psychology and really customize this to the behavior and psychology of money for women. And I would love to do books, but I see a program. That's it. Down the road, I see a program. And so much of it is, and I was listening, I might be doing, I didn't tell you this. There's an organization called the Money Coaching Institute, and I don't think she started in Canada, but so I watched a webinar. So I might go through their certification also, because let's just keep stacking things up. But it actually, I watched the webinar and it pulls in the neuroscience piece, and she explained the difference between mindset and the brain, right? And so mindset is our thinking, brain is behavior and patterns that are hardwired into the brain. And so I'm so fascinated because, girl, the bottom line is we need money, right? That is how we exist in this world. It's the currency of exchange for which we operate and can live. The future feels very uncertain to a lot of us right now. And regardless of whether it does or doesn't, I think it is. Okay. Whether it feels that way to you or not, none of us know. What if someone could have told me that the house we bought in 1997 for $147,000 is now $700,000? I would have told them they were on crack. It's not gotten any bigger, but right. We don't, but the point is, and so there is this real curiosity about exploring all this. So I might get certified with that. And all of this is content, right? My other hashtag, everything is content. And so I will use these AI tools for myself in a way that help me craft the right message. And this is why I'm also going back to, I'm going to tie into Substack. And this is tomorrow's marketing trifectas. I'm going to reinstate my ConvertKit account because I want to be able to get different data. And I want more actions and automations than Substack is capable of giving me. So I'm just excited, girl. I'm excited about this program. I'm excited about sharing the journey of learning. I am feeling incredibly empowered to use my voice for good and to amplify women. So yeah, I don't necessarily have a specific thing, but a lot of little things. But I think the magic here is, how do I bring them all home into one thing for myself? And that is something I am working on with AI.
100%. And there's going to be a huge audience that benefits from the work that you share. So thank you for being willing to jump into that space and make it public.
You're very welcome. And I will share my own painful heartache and stories because, as my therapist always says, we're only as sick as our secrets. And, or to quote my other favorite person is Dumbledore, and that is happiness can be found even in the darkest of times if one only remembers to turn on the light.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. I am so happy to have been able to talk to you.
Thank you. Sorry if I went on too many tangents, but I am super excited for you. And I can't wait to share this with my audience as well, because the more we learn, the more empowered we can help other women become.
Yes. Time for us to not only be at the table, but be at the head of it.
Yeah. Own the table.
I love it.
Thank you for tuning in to Empowered by AI. If today's episode sparked ideas, don't wait. Follow the link in the show notes to visit innovativeaistudio.com and download your free resource created to help you put today's insights into practice. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes packed with more tips, tools, and inspiring stories. Until next time, stay empowered and keep innovating.